This is Ready, Set, Renovate, a podcast delivering renovation inspiration and motivating you to put your home beautifying ideas into motion. Daniel Builders builds trust in 5 ways. Commitment is one of those ways. Simply put, trust is built when expectations are set and met. One of our biggest commitments is to a clearly defined guide, design, build process. This process includes in-house skilled labor as well as trade contractors. In this episode, we examine the role of the trade contractor and their relationship to the general contractor. Stephen Jones of Caba Homes and Sam Parkinson of Daniel Builders are our 2 guests. Both of these men have formed productive relationships with their trade contractors and interact with them almost daily. It's an intriguing and in-depth look at how trade contractors can make or break the whole build process. So let's get to it. So here we are on an actual job site. This is a job that Sam, to my left here, is project managing. And it's also the topic of a mini documentary series we're calling Another 100 Years. You can find that on our YouTube page, little plug there. For Another 100 Years, our YouTube page is Daniel Builders, Inc. Hope you check that out. To my right, I'm joined by Stephen Jones of Caba Homes, and we're talking trade contractors today. Trade contractors are essential to every builder. They're essential to every custom project that you see. Having the right trades, having the right skill level is an absolute must. So I want to back up just a little bit before we dive into that topic and ask, if they're so important, what do you guys do? As a GC, why can't a homeowner just go in and say, you know what, I'll play the role of GC. I'll take charge and tell the trades and organize the trades and make sure their quality's up to par. I want to hear from you guys. What is it that you do that makes it so essential? It's such an essential part of the building process.
Sure. It's funny that you phrase it that way. I've had a couple times in the past people that just don't know construction or a lot about it. They'll make a comment around like, oh, you just have to make a handful of phone calls. People show up and do work. Like, your job has got to be so easy.
Not the case.
I wish. Yeah. I wish that were true. The honest answer that I found, I'm 9 years into this as a residential builder, and I feel like I'm really just starting to kind of get my arms around this thing and really understand what it looks like. From a homeowner's perspective, I think it boils down to you don't know what you don't know. There are kind of the old adage, there's a dozen ways to skin a cat kind of thing. There are so many ways that you can build a home, that you can install any kind of mechanical system. Really, everything that happens could be done in a number of ways, and it is the experience and the knowledge of what's the better way. What way do you want? What are the expectations that you've got of the person that you're hiring? And without all the context of the good, the bad, and the ugly, the communication and delivering the expectation of what you want as the end product can be tough if you're not really sure how to ask the right questions or communicate in a way that maybe that trade partner is used to receiving information from others.
Well, I know you guys really earn your keep when things go wrong, and in major projects, that's a given, right? Things are going to happen. Things are going to go wrong. Would you concur pretty much with what Stephen's saying? That's the role?
I think one of the easiest ways for me to probably explain my role is probably to explain what Daniel Builders does as a whole, our whole process. So we take people through a design phase first, and it's easy to think that phase is just all fun and just picking out the fancy, pretty things, but it's a design phase that goes through every detail that they could possibly imagine on the project itself, from selections to floor plans to working with an architect and a draftsman, and then getting quotes on things so that you have an idea about what you're going to spend before we get too far in. And then from there, I get handed this project on the build side of things, and we take it from there. And my main job as a project manager is to execute. Mm-hmm. And part of that execution is getting and communicating with subcontractors. And you'd be surprised at how many questions, like what Stephen was saying, that we have to field from those guys about specifics of a job. And if you don't know at least a decent amount about every single phase of what construction is, you're going to have a really hard time moving forward in a job, especially if you can't answer this guy's question.
Oh, yeah.
We also are the ones who are dealing very often with building municipalities, inspections. If you don't know how to go pull a permit, then that's going to be a process all of in itself. And then, of course, we are the ones who are scheduling. We're dealing with the budget.
Yep.
We're making sure that things are showing up on time. We have an idea of what lead times look like when it comes to ordering materials and getting things out into job sites. And so, on top of that, primarily what we do, I think, is communicate.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys definitely earn your keep. You're both very, very busy people, and I see the immense amount of details that you guys are managing day to day, and grateful for it. I know I couldn't do it. It's not an easy job. So if you're out there contemplating, hey, maybe I should try my hand at being a general contractor on my own project, I would warn against that if the project's pretty big, right? I guess for maybe a smaller project that you're looking to spend, a couple grand on, finding a trade may not be a bad thing. Let's segue into the trades and how we utilize trades in the building business, how we find trades. Stephen, your model is exclusively trade-based.
It is.
You don't have in-house carpenters or skilled labor, but you have apparently some really tight-knit relationships with trades. How long did it take you to get to that point where you're able to rely on those trades and move away from the in-house labor?
Right. Yeah. Couple of years, honestly. And I would even say it's an ongoing process as we evolve a little bit, as projects that we take on maybe grow or expand and evolve into consistently maybe a little bit bigger projects. Our usually sub base has to kind of evolve and move with us. So there's a lot of sub trades in the marketplace. Those guys specialize in certain areas themselves. So you could have carpenters that focus on the remodeling side of things. We've got one guy that works really closely with us that he's not set up to go do a new home, but he is fantastic at coming in and helping us demo an existing home, reframe, and just get everything set up for all the trades to come. So it's very much of a relationship building process with the sub trades that you have, them understanding how you work, how you want to serve your clients, what are some of the expectations when they're on the job site with you, because the reality is they're working for other builders and contractors as well, and those guys may or may not have their own set of expectations. So it's the more you communicate, the more you build a relationship, the more likely you have a smooth project, but also the more likely you create, which is what we're really focused on, is our trade partners are part of the team. We can't do what we do without them. And it's them understanding that as much as we do and reciprocating that to them as well. They own businesses. They have typically employees. They've got responsibilities of their own. And it's us kind of honoring that and making sure that we're working within their model as much as they're working within ours.
So coming at it from just being a real demanding GC wouldn't be a good approach. There is some give and take, and there's a team atmosphere there. I would think the major issue would be scheduling, right? Because like Steven's saying, they have other people they're working for. You have a deadline. Does it all come down to scheduling, Sam?
Scheduling is super important. And the bigger the job, sometimes the easier it is to handle scheduling, because you can have a 4-6 month lead time or an advance notice for a subcontractor you're working with. And then at that point, as long as you continue to communicate along the way, there's really just the expectation that you should be able to be there. Or at least they will know early enough to where you can find a replacement if you need to. But On smaller projects, it's definitely a tough thing working schedules. And for us at Daniel Builders, we have some long-term relationships with subcontractors, and we're at the size now where some guys don't work for too many other people other than us. Some people pretty much as subcontractors work exclusively for us, and have a hard time keeping up, like one of our tile subcontractors.
Oh yeah.
And so
He's above us now.
he's above
right?
us right now, working on the shower. But yeah, we actually are looking for more tile people because we keep him too busy. And so, yeah, scheduling's super important. Sometimes within a company, we got enough projects going on, we step on each other's toes, and we have to work through that.
Yeah.
So that makes scheduling even more complicated sometimes. But yeah, scheduling's very
there's
important.
5 project managers that you're kind of sharing trades with within the Daniel Builders organization.
Yes, so we have to kind of manage not only relationships with subcontractors in every trade, but also multiple sometimes. And some we prefer for particular projects and particular scopes of work, and then sometimes we are going to take on another guy that specializes in something else.
Let's talk about finding those guys. How do you go about finding? You mentioned, right now there's more demand, it feels like, than there is trades out there to meet the demand. And so we're evaluating new trades as we go. Is there a process that you go through once you've identified somebody who might be a good candidate to be a Daniel Builders trade contractor?
Yeah. We try people out, especially new ones, and usually we'll try to do that based on a referral of some kind from whether that's been somebody using them for themselves or another builder like Steven. And so that's usually what gets people in the door, and then we try them on something that the liability or the risk isn't too great. We don't bring them on the most complicated project that we have at the time. And so that's typically how we start. And then if there is that good communication, there's that mutual respect, there's the good execution, then that's the kind of person that we will take and hold on to and treasure that relationship going forward.
Sam touched on something there about how contractors and builders are kind of a network in among themselves, or some are. I mean, I know we're part of a good network that you're part of, and we're exchanging information. Hey, this guy's good. This guy has this concern to be aware of, or whatever. Do you talk about that network? Because I think that could be a myth where a lot of people say they're just competitors. They're never going to talk to their competitor. But especially as you're a believer and a follower of Jesus, I know we're part of a prayer breakfast together. There's a whole nother level of trust. Yeah, we're still competing in one sense, but we're also collaborating in another sense and sharing ideas.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that's important. Both worlds exist a little bit, and it's critical, I think, to find both at the builder level, but at the subtrade level, those guys that want to network, that want to be part of a group of people. The idea of getting better together is it's critical, because you can only learn so much on your own, and most of that's going to be trial and error. But when you've got some people that can come alongside you, that share maybe values, that share the level of professionalism and the service to the end user just as much as the builder, there's a lot of power in that. And that's usually an indication of the type of person that you're dealing with. The guys that don't have any interest in that are typically out for themselves, or they've just never been exposed to the value of it. They just have never seen. They feel like it's a cutthroat kind of environment, or
there's a lack of humility. Like, you can't teach me anything. I don't need to teach you. I don't want to give you any of my time.
Yep. And that's a little bit of ignorance. There's this kind of paradox of progress, I think, that exists, at least for me. The further I get, the more I realize I either don't know or need to learn to continue to get better. So 9 years ago, I probably would have told you I was better than I am today. And I've learned a lot over 9 years. And now I just see a lot more that I need to learn. So finding guys that share that mentality, just to your point, there's a level of humility. And more importantly, there's a level of both responsibility that they have for the job, and the want and desire to do it to the best of their ability.
Yeah,
that's good.
It kind of gets at the idea, too, of a rising tide raises all ships.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
And that mentality in itself, I mean, the building industry has a pretty bad reputation in general from the guys that are out there for themselves or the guys that have stolen money or done all the things that you've heard of or never communicate, never get back to you.
Absolutely.
And the more that we collaborate and the more relationships we have within the building community and the better we help each other become, the more that reputation in general will continue to rise and get better. And then we all do better.
Yes.
You know, builders, project managers, everyone does better.
Absolutely. No, that's well articulated. We are facing an uphill challenge because of the building community has been known to be, I think it's the second least trusted industry out there. I think attorneys may be number one, but anyways, there is a trust deficit in the realm of work we do.
Yeah, which gets to what we've talked about already, which gets to that communication piece, which is so important for GCs and for project managers, superintendents, because that's the main thing that you probably hear people complain about when it comes to our industry. Is communication is horrible. And that's one of those things, even when choosing subcontractors, if they are extremely skilled, but you can never get a hold of them, you can't use them. You can't rely on them because ultimately what is coming back to show is on us. And that's really what the client cares about. They don't really care, you know, about any of those other things. So yeah, it gets back to that. And it's super important for us to be able to communicate effectively.
Reputation. Let's camp on that for a second. Reputation. So your trades are on the job site. They're reflecting you, right? For better or worse, they reflect you and your leadership, your ability to manage a project is all a reflection of you. What, as far as things that you focus on right out of the gate with them, what are, like, when it comes to appearance, the homeowner is going to see the trade, right? Do you kind of set the expectation as far as appearance goes, or what are some of the things that you set the expectation for them as they reflect you on that site, Steve?
That's definitely a conversation that comes up if it needs to. Right, there's a line that you draw. The way we talk about it a lot is that appearance piece. It's kind of the equivalent of a clean job site. So when a homeowner, your client, even people that drive by a job that have no clue who you are, they only have a couple of things that they are able to kind of connect the dots in their mind to create a judgment of who you are and whether or not you're professional.
That's true. Yeah.
So if they see a messy job site, all they look at is, man, somebody just has to go clean that up and that could look way better. They don't care about what they're doing. Now, the home and the work could be beautiful, but the people riding by that job have no way to quantify that. They've never experienced it.
That's good.
So the appearance, as bad as it is, but it's the reality that we live in. You could be a fantastic trade partner, but without that some form of appearance that kind of says you're a professional, the unfortunate piece is that a client's probably going to judge you in a negative manner.
That's well said. Yeah, that's marketing for a lot of people. You know, what the visual is, what they see, the presentation, and that applies both to the job site and to your personal appearance, even your hygiene. You know, at Daniel Builders, we set a standard pretty high as far as how we want to convey ourselves. And you agree with that, what he's saying? And I know I wanted you to touch on, too, the safety piece. Like, obviously, if a trade gets hurt on your job site, it's going to be detrimental to you as a business in a major way.
Yeah.
How do you set the expectation as far as safety? And you're equipped to speak about this because this is our safety manager at Daniel Builders.
Yeah. So it's certainly a conversation. It goes back to that conversation. You know, sometimes we hope we don't have to have it, and a lot of times we like to think that we have high standards for the subcontractors that we bring in, who already are professional or already see themselves as being professional or wanting to look professional, wanting to clean up after themselves. You know, there's always these funny memes and stereotypes about, you know, electricians being super messy and, you know, plumbers being super messy. But for the most part, you know, what we try to do is keep it, because we have in-house staff as well, we try to keep things looking very nice all the time. And what we found is that a lot of times it stands out even worse when someone comes in and makes a big mess of things. And so often we don't have to communicate things too much. because things are already looking the way that we'd like to look, and then people pretty much follow in suit.
That's just the expectation in itself, almost.
Yeah,
right?
it sets an expectation without having to really say much.
That's a good
And then
point.
that lends itself into the safety aspect of it too. A lot of our guys are wearing, PPE. They're doing things that are, taking care of themselves. They're trying not to have drop cords everywhere. And there have been times where we've had to have conversations with trade partners because it's not so much that we feel like, we want them to be safe, but it's not a good look if you are cutting granite countertops in the back of a truck and you've got white silica dust everywhere and you're just sitting in there grinding and not wearing a mask. That's going to be the kind of thing, like no homeowner wants somebody to get injured at their house. And so we've had to have conversations before, which is like, you guys need to be wearing this kind of equipment. You should for yourself, but also, it's concerning to people who are here who don't really understand everything, and we just need to make
And the good trades will respect that. They'll take that. They'll be like, "You're right. I'm gonna go put it on right now."
Yeah.
So, if you were starting your business today, just right out of the gate, from scratch, starting the business, what would be the number one trade that you would want to get first, right out of the gate? The most important trade, or is there? I know that's a tough question, but if you had to get this one right, what would it be?
That is a tough question. Gosh, I don't know, especially in the thought of building an entire home. I don't know that there is one trade partner that I would deem more important than another. The one thing that I would do is spend more time on processes, spend more time on expectations. I'd spend more time honing in on what I wanted from those trade partners and have those conversations up front instead of a couple of years of trial and error learning and just having to deal with the mistakes on site. Having that knowledge and starting something today, I would think I'd hone in on those things more than I would one individual
Trade.
because there's not one person that makes or break a home as a whole. It's everything working in unison together.
So would you agree there's not really a priority in trades that you see?
No, they're all equally important because, some might affect things later on more than others. If you have a massive leak in your house, that's a huge problem. But they all have, they're all equally important, and we treat them that way. Yeah.
Well, let's go down the list. Like, what are the trades that you utilize pretty much on every major project?
Yeah, I can speak to this project specifically since we're sitting in it right now.
We are, yeah. By the way, this is a historic renovation. And as I mentioned at the get-go, you can learn all about it on our YouTube page. Sam has done a great job bringing this to the point it is currently. It's in a really, really good place. But it's a massive renovation, a major renovation, lasts about a year. And tell us the trades that you utilized for this project.
Yeah, so we used a lot of in-house staff, first of all, which I know that's a difference between our company and Stevens. So that was a huge part, but we've had graders and masons. We had a framing crew because although our in-house guys are decent at framing, low to mid-level framing jobs, this one was massive, and we would have been doing it forever if we were doing it in-house. So we brought in a big framing crew, and we've had all the specialty trades: HVAC, plumbing, electrical. We've had roofers, drywallers, insulation guys. We have painters here now. We had cabinet shop.
Wow, you just listed off maybe 15, you think, total, or more than that?
It's probably more than that when it's all said and done. We still have gutter guys and things like that coming in later. But yeah, we have it's a lot. It takes a lot, and so
that makes sense in what you were saying. Picking one that's the most important is pretty much impossible to do.
Yeah,
because it's all are really, really essential.
I would say that.
To
Yeah,
making it.
absolutely.
How does, from the in-house skilled labor perspective, how do they work alongside trades? Are there times that they're actually working hand in hand together, or are they pretty much completely separate?
Yeah, so we have guys, they are a double-edged sword in a way, which probably gets to why Steven at some point moved away from them. There's something to be said about having to keep that many guys busy all the time. The more skills that they have, the more the easier it is to do that. We have some guys that are more specialty, and they are good at taking care of like all of our really high-end finish trim work and all that. But our guys kind of do a little bit of everything. You know, they are the glue that basically ties all of this process together. They are taking care of all the things that subcontractors don't like taking care of. And they also, I mean, we end up using them for a lot of those, you know, a lot of the framing and a lot of everything we're, you know, dealing with wood. But they're also the guys that were doing a lot of our demolition, because we do primarily remodel over here at Daniel Builders. We do some new construction, but there's a lot of demolition that goes into these jobs. And so they really are doing everything in between and, you know, during the process of having subcontractors here. And there are some relationships we have right now where we have a framing subcontractor who is kind of a one-man show, maybe two guys, and it actually works out well for him and for us on some really big framing jobs.
Yeah.
To have
That's
him
so cool. Yeah.
primarily leading the charge and taking that mantle on himself, and then we have 2 or 3 guys working alongside.
Supply him. Yeah.
Yeah, we supply him with some labor.
That's pretty cool. That was a really neat arrangement when I heard that.
Yeah.
How that worked out. Just last question. In the future of trades, are you seeing the trades kind of aging out where you're not seeing new young folks going into the trades as much, or is that kind of a myth out there? Or are you seeing a spike in new people showing interest in trades and thinking, hey, I don't have to go get a 4-year degree. I can get a trade skill and start making really decent money pretty soon after high school?
God, that is an industry topic right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I think collectively, the unfortunate answer is we're still seeing a decline in the workforce. The unfortunate piece of that is it kind of goes back to that professionalism piece. It goes, from what I've seen, it's tied directly to so many people in the trades for so long grew up in a family member or happened to work closely with somebody. They jumped in a truck every morning at somebody's house. They went out to job sites and worked all day long and then went home dirty. And that was the extent of it.
Yeah.
But especially as technology is evolving and as you grow the network of people, people are building great businesses that serve people really well. One of the things that I think the younger generation wants is that team kind of atmosphere, that business environment. They want to know what they should be doing. They want to know if they're doing a good job, if they're not doing a good job. They want feedback to get better at what they're doing, where the generation prior to that, they were perfectly fine just jumping in a truck every day, going and plumbing houses if that's what it was, and that was it. They
Just punch in, punch out.
Yeah, they didn't think too much more past that. But the younger generation now wants more. So there is the void that I see is this want for more in the industry, but a lack of a group of people to help give them that information.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'll speak to that as well. As a young guy who is kind of, found my way into the industry, one thing that I wanted was kind of getting to what he's talking about, the apprenticeship model that I felt like used to exist a generation or two ago, where it was pretty common to have a family member, have a family friend that was in the trades, and you'd go work for them, and then they would, have you sweeping the job site, picking up trash, doing all that kind of stuff, and then slowly you'd hear these guys like, I always had this one guy who invested in me, who taught me everything I know. And that was something that when I got in, it was kind of an expectation that I would have loved to have had that. The problem was that I couldn't find any place that existed. And there's so many people that I know around my age or a little bit younger that they haven't been able to find that. And I don't know exactly the reasoning behind that, whatever it is in that previous generation, not seeing themselves as the, proprietors of their trade and of their skill, wanting to pass that on to the next generation. It just doesn't seem to be there as much. But where I have been able to find a glimmer of hope in all of this has been that so much of that has moved to the internet that you almost don't have an excuse. Because when I started learning carpentry, for one, I was able to be a student of 30 different master carpenters across the country. via YouTube, via Instagram. And so there
Were you
is
able to get questions to them, or were they already answering your questions before you?
you can honestly search in whatever question you have, and typically you're going to find people that have answers to those questions. And so that's something that I have found as extremely hopeful for generations going forward, because this is a very tech savvy generation in general.
Yeah.
But at this point, there's no excuse. I mean, we kind of expect even our young guys to be, we want to train you up as much as we possibly can, but also like go
Take
out
some
and get
ownership.
it yourself. Yeah, it's out there.
No,
I
that's
think we're seeing a shift. I think we are. There's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of programs now. There's a lot of guys that are on YouTube, to your point, that are really working to bring back the nobility of the trades.
Yeah.
To bring back the craft and the love of the craft and the want to serve people through the craft. I think we're seeing a lot of it. It's just going to take a little bit for that to really take root, I think, and us to see the fruit of that labor. But I think we're seeing a shift.
That's a great optimistic note to end on. Guys, I really appreciate you taking out some time. I know y'all are both very busy, and the knowledge that you share is helpful for someone who's considering a major renovation and wants to get to know, what it's all about. And you guys shared some of that with us today. Thank you. Until next time, we'll see you.
We're delighted you tuned in for today's episode of Ready, Set, Renovate, your guide design build resource. Are you ready for your home to undergo a transformation? We'd love to talk to you about it. Visit us at danielbuilders.com and tell us about the home renovation you envision. In the meantime, subscribe to Ready, Set, Renovate, and we'll keep the renovation inspiration coming.